I personally love Auburn's path to the Elite Eight and Final Four.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Joining me as he does every single Monday, it is the Lindsay Crosby. You can find his Auburn stuff over at thebarnauburn.com. We'll talk about Auburn baseball's incredible series, but we got to get things going with Auburn earning the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament. But not only that, Lindsay, I personally love the draw itself. I know some people are kind of concerned about the second round matchup. We'll get to that. But when I list the teams here and you compare to what Auburn is used to facing in the SEC, I think it's an incredible draw for the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I have to be honest, the idea of possibly playing Louisville in Kentucky is a little bit like frustrating. Like, come on, really? They kind of get essentially a home game. But yeah, no, you don't have to play Yale. So you feel like it could be okay because...
Or if you do, it'll be in what? It'd be in the Elite Eight?
It could technically be Sweet 16, but it's not in the first round. Like,
yeah, that's right.
It really, I don't think any of the first 4 or the final 4 in have ever won a game in the tournament, knock on wood. So I don't feel like you're on upset alert here.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. And so naturally, the conversation quickly went to the second game for all the reasons you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Louisville and Creighton, the 8-9 matchup. These games being played in Lexington. Does that present an issue with Louisville just being like an hour and something minutes away from where this game's going to be played? I personally don't like, if you can't beat Louisville an hour away from where their stadium is, like, you're not going to win the national championship anyway. I know Louisville just played Duke for the ACC championship. Like, that's super great, but just the quality of basketball is just vastly different right now. So to me, like, 1, I'm not concerned about it. 2, I'm actually shocked the amount of people that are writing off Creighton. I think Creighton's a better team than Louisville.
I personally, listen, we all know that a ton of Auburn fans are going to be in Kentucky because Auburn's baseball is up there this upcoming weekend. So they're going to give Auburn a little bit of help over on the basketball side. They'll lend some fans to that. I'm not worried about the fan draw over there. Whether it's Louisville or it's Creighton, one of the fun games we like to play. Do you know where Creighton is?
It's in Omaha, right?
It is. Yeah, the only reason I know where it is because that's the whole ballpark for the College World Series. Right. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Their analytics team does all the cool stuff for the College World Series. No, it doesn't matter who you're playing, 8 or 9. Auburn's going to be the favorite in just about every single matchup until possibly like the first time you might not be a favorite would be the Elite Eight, maybe. And even then, that's only because
I think they would be, man. I think they would be a favorite.
If it's Ole Miss, somebody's going to come out and say, "Oh, well, what'd you do against Ole Miss?" You know, and like it's just it's.
If it's Ole Miss, like, I think that's incredible. If it is Ole Miss,
oh yeah, it's the
argument then is, can you beat a decent team 4 times in the same season? That would be the discussion.
Yeah,
there. But I'm with you. Like, the Sweet 16 matchups are interesting. There's so many storylines around the South bracket from the Auburn perspective.
A&M,
yeah, Yale, A&M. Right, they beat you. Then Michigan, who I think is the most likely option in the Sweet 16, if I had to guess. I mean, I think it's Michigan or Texas A&M. If it goes chalk, it'll be Texas A&M. But I just think, the whole Trey Donaldson saga there, I think that'd be fascinating if Michigan made it. And then, of course, if A&M makes it, you get another crack at them. And I think that benefits Auburn because I don't think you could beat Auburn twice this season.
When your first win was at home, right after Auburn won the SEC tournament.
Without
I believe they were resting Denver Jones, yeah. And I'm sorry, they won the SEC regular season, and then were resting Denver Jones, and you were at home. Now, can you do it on the road when Auburn, according to Bruce Pearl, has 100% health and availability?
Yeah. And I also think by this point, Auburn has a shot to be healthier than they have been over the last few weeks. I think that's something, and I don't know if we'll fully know the extent of like how banged up Janai Broome is, but I have a hard time believing he's 100%. And so does this week off potentially help him get back to that point? Same with Denver. I mean, he actually sat. And then I don't think Chad Baker-Mazara looks 100% either. He kept grabbing his back against Alabama. And I mean, he looked fine in the SEC tournament. But we'll see.
I think it was somebody
exactly
went and elbowed him in the back, and then he turned around and retaliated, and that's what he got flagged. He got called for. Yeah.
A couple kidney shots there for sure. But to me, like I'm just shocked, and maybe I shouldn't be, just because it just seems like the negativity always comes out when people want to talk about anything that happens with Auburn. But I love this draw. I think Michigan State is the worst 2 seed of all of them. The other options are Alabama. I think Alabama is better than Michigan State.
Yep.
I think Tennessee is better than Michigan State. I also don't want to play Tennessee. And then St. John's, I think there's going to be different opinions on St. John's. We'll certainly see, what the truth is and how far they can go there. But I think Michigan State is the weakest of those. And Auburn would have played Michigan State in Maui, but it didn't work out that way because, I believe Memphis beat them in Maui.
They did. Where is St. John's?
It's in New York, right?
Yeah. Here's what I don't understand. Yes, it's in Queens, New York. Queens is a borough, not a city. It's a New York City.
That's right.
But everything says Queens. I'm like, that's not a Rick Pitino's the head coach over there now, apparently.
He is. And he does this thing where, like, when he's at a program for his second season, they blow up, and they've been outstanding this year. But the Big East isn't what it has been. So I'm curious to see what exactly that looks like and how it translates to March. But all in all, like, the potential teams that you could play in the Elite Eight, Ole Miss, Iowa State apparently is pretty banged up, so I'm not expecting to see them there. Auburn beat them, of course, in Maui earlier this season. Marquette, I think, is probably going to be a trendy team. And then, of course, Michigan State. And so, like, I think the most likely option is Michigan State. But if you're Auburn, I think you're pulling for an Iowa State or an Ole Miss at this point.
And then I think also we kind of forget about some of the locations here with this, right? Like you are going to be in Atlanta, provided you obviously handle your business. You are going to be in Atlanta. And so you might be playing a team that's like, you may have the advantage, kind of like we're talking about with Louisville, where Louisville is going to have fans. Your fans are planning on going to Atlanta. It's an hour drive. We do it all the time anyway. Like, Auburn people go to Atlanta a lot. We're just going to go to
Auburn basketball plays in Atlanta a lot, and they play well in Atlanta. So they just got to get there. They got to get there, and that's been the biggest argument against Bruce Pearl. Is with the exception of the 2019 Final Four run, they haven't been back. They haven't been back to the Sweet 16. And so, how do you get to that point? Well, you beat the winner of Alabama State and St. Francis. I don't know where St. Francis is. Do you?
I have no clue where St. Francis is. Let me see. There's basketball. I'm gonna guess something dumb like Indiana or Pennsylvania. Hang on.
I would guess Northeast. I would guess New York again.
Loretto, Pennsylvania.
Very wrong on that. Daryl told me that the other day.
Their head coach is Rob Krimmel, which just sounds made up.
All right. And then so you beat the winner of that game, and then you beat Louisville or Creighton, and you're there. And you're there. And I think you're in a prime spot to take care of business. And I think there's going to be some pressure on this team to get through the first weekend, just because of the storylines that kind of have followed Bruce Pearl and this Auburn program. If you can win these first 2 games, I would not want to play Auburn.
Is the Sweet 16 enough, given what this to be number 1 overall seed, given what this team's accomplished this year?
I think from a pressure standpoint, yes. Now, if they lose in the Sweet 16, no, it's a disappointment.
Yeah. Like, at what point do we say it was we're happy, it was a good season if they do eventually lose? Is it the Elite Eight? Is it the Final Four?
I think it's the Final Four.
You have to make the Final Four for people to not think this was a failure.
And I'm always in the camp of, like, we got to be careful for judging seasons based off of March. I'm in that camp, and a lot of people disagree or whatever. It's like, is this season a failure if whatever? With what you've accomplished this year from a history standpoint, yes. I mean, you don't get many chances like this. You don't.
Number 1 overall seed, yeah.
You don't get many chances like this. You don't get many, National Player of the Year candidates.
Playing at home, playing close to home.
Sure. Yeah. I think we're at the point where we've got to expect more as a fan base and as a program. So we'll see exactly what that looks like in the coming weeks. So what specifically do we think that path is? We'll tell you in just a second right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Factor. Lindsay, can you imagine eating food that's not from Factor?
I have non-Factor food has never passed these lips.
That's right. Eating healthy doesn't have to be complicated. With Factor, you get chef-made, dietitian-approved meals that are ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. Imagine having lunch or dinner and you're spending more than 2 minutes on it. Imagine that. Can't do it.
Factor. So listen, I work from home. Factor meals in there. Whenever I'm hungry, I walk into the other room. Factor meal.
Bang.
My teams doesn't even have time to go to away.
Bang. Factor meals arrive fresh. They're never frozen. They've got over 40 options across 8 dietary preferences each week. You can customize your menu. It's awesome. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/Factor Podcast and use Factor Podcast to get 50% off of your first box over at factor.com. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends at Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades. That's Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. If you need help with an order, Lindsay, do you think you're talking to AI or do you think you're talking to a real person with Supply House?
It's going to be a real person.
It's going to be a real person.
So much plumbing stuff in the last month and a half. It's ridiculous.
You would have saved money going to Supply House.
Listen,
no question about it.
New toilet, an ice maker. We had a new dishwasher put in.
Wow, you're not kidding.
I'm not kidding. A new faucet recently, had to reseal a sink. All of this stuff. I'd have saved so much money from Supply House, but there's a way, Zach. Not only do they have great prices, there's a way I could have gotten an extra 5% off. How is
that's
that?
true. That's true. Well, you can join their free Trade Master program and you get exclusive perks. And one of those is you can use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's over at supplyhouse.com. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. I want to discuss the worst case scenario because that's what we like to do. We like to discuss worst case scenarios. And I think that is Auburn in the first game plays Alabama State instead of St. Francis. I think it's so close. It's like the bottom 2 seeded teams, whatever. Then I think Louisville is next just because of the home crowd thing. I'm still pushing back on that because I think there's a real chance that Auburn has just as many fans there as Louisville. Listen, really think that.
Everybody's traveling for Butch Thompson's Tigers. I understand. They'll go over there. They'll go to that game, and then they'll go back to baseball. I get it.
There it is. No, I think, when we drive to Ohio, like we drive through Louisville often. Like it's totally doable. We drive to Louisville and then like another 5 hours. So to me, like I don't know. Maybe I'm booging too hard, but when everybody was freaking out about the draw, I was shocked. It's like, what? We think we have our best team ever, and like we're the thing that we're hanging up on is playing Louisville and Lexington. I don't know. I just have a hard time wrapping my brain around that. And then I think the next worst case scenario for Auburn, or the toughest road in Sweet 16, would probably be Michigan. I think Michigan would be the worst case scenario for Auburn in the Sweet 16. Weirdly, I think the best case scenario would be Yale.
From a seeding perspective and from a we're not going to do this again perspective, it's Yale. Yeah, I mean, there's no way you would lose in 2 straight years to a knock on wood to a Yale team.
Yeah, and then the Elite Eight. I think the best team on the other side of Auburn's bracket is Michigan State. I don't think there's any surprise there. I have a weird feeling about Marquette. I don't know. Maybe I'll be wrong. We'll learn quickly. Because they have to play Michigan State in the second round, assuming they win and beat New Mexico.
Where is Marquette?
Marquette is outside of Milwaukee, I believe.
Yeah, okay. But they play in downtown Milwaukee, so they have to like bus to their own stadium or their own arena.
Weird. Is that real?
Yeah, I'm looking at this.
I can't imagine playing.
Fiserv Forum is in downtown Milwaukee, but the team is not.
Dang, I can't imagine like having an arena that's not on campus. That's kind of hard to imagine, actually. But yeah, I think if that's the worst case scenario, like I just don't think that's any tougher than what they've done throughout the regular season.
Like, that's the funny thing to me is if we go and we pick and choose what is the hardest possible path here, and we're not picking teams they played in the SEC already, then it's like teams that at best are giving them an equivalent test to what they just not aced, but got an A- on in the SEC.
No, they aced it. Let's
Okay,
control this.
Games
let's control this
games
narrative.
that mattered, I guess. You're
Let's
right.
control.
Yeah,
People are acting like Auburn. I just did the bracket show that we're doing in partnership with Amazon Fire, and I was their Auburn guy, and like everything that they're talking about is like, well, yeah, Auburn lost 3 of their last 4, and it's like, well, hold on a second.
Games that mattered.
Everybody's talking about how like Auburn's fallen off, and it's not like we're losing to teams that haven't been. I don't know. I just have such a hard time like putting myself in that like Debbie Downer mindset. But
yeah,
I just think when you look at these stretches that Auburn had throughout the season, I think they're just as tough as Auburn getting to the Final Four. I mean, you can look at like, let's look at the start of SEC play. Missouri, Texas, both tournament teams. At South Carolina, not a tournament team. Mississippi State, a tournament team. Georgia, a tournament team. Tennessee, a tournament team. LSU, the other SEC team that's not a tournament team. Ole Miss and Oklahoma. Lose to Florida after that. But then it's like, okay, Vanderbilt, tournament team. Bama, tournament team. Arkansas, tournament team somehow. Georgia, a tournament team. Ole Miss, a tournament team. At Kentucky, a tournament team. It's like, to me,
the SEC was the hardest conference in college basketball
it's
history
not
this
close.
year.
It's not close, Lindsay. 14 teams made it in. 14 teams. And Auburn ran through that conference, and until they had everything clinched, were a force. They were a force. And now does something change? Something has to change in their brain, right? To say, hey, you know, like this.
Turn it back on.
This is it. This is it. And I just have this feeling that it's going to.
Glass half full versus glass half empty, right? Like that's kind of the thing.
I don't even think it's that, dude. I don't even think it's that. I think it's looking at how Janai Broome and Chad Baker-Mazara and Denver Jones and Miles Kelly and Dylan Cardwell and Chaney Johnson, Tahad Pettit. It's how these guys are wired. And you talk to some of these transfers, and Miles is like this. And, you know, he's like, this is why we came to Auburn. This is why we came to Auburn. And like, the job's not done. And to me, I think that's the biggest thing that Bruce is going to say to these guys over and over and over again. Like, the job's not done.
It's hard to argue with a collective 47 years of college basketball experience that this roster has. You know,
that's just Chad Baker-Mazara and Janai.
That's just these two guys. No, I feel good about, like, it's hard to go through the SEC the way that they did and play as many games as they did and win as many games as they did and not know how to win games when the pressure's on. And again, like, to your point, I don't think the end of the season, the way it ended, really matters. Right. Here's a game I want to play. We do this in college baseball a lot.
Okay.
There's 8 teams in Omaha, and the game we always play is how many of them will be from the SEC.
Let's look.
And usually it's around 4. So in the Final 4, or maybe heck, Elite 8, I don't care, Elite 8. How many SEC teams do you think? Because that's the equivalent.
Let's do Elite 8.
Elite 8. How many SEC teams do you think will be there?
So in Auburn's half of the South, it'll be. I think it'll either be Auburn or A&M. So I'll take that.
Okay.
I don't think Ole Miss makes it. So I'm not going there. I'm not picking against Florida. So that's 2.
Yep. I'll go down here too.
Yeah, I don't see Missouri or Arkansas beating out Texas Tech or St. John. So we're still at 2.
Yeah.
In Duke's bracket, Alabama will make it, or they have a shot at making it. I don't think Mississippi State does. And then in Houston's bracket,
Tennessee.
Yeah. So is that 4? Half of them?
4, because Georgia's not going to make it as a 9. So it's going to be it'd be Tennessee or Kentucky. I think.
So you might have 4 of the 8. Yeah. Yeah, which is crazy.
So college basketball has now become college baseball, where the SEC is just going to have half of the spots at the end of the year.
You saw a few years ago, man, and like, I think Bruce Pearl was kind of the start of this. Auburn was kind of the start of this, where it's like, we're going to invest and care about basketball.
Mhm.
And, a few hires were made around that time. Bruce has been here longer than pretty much everybody else. And
Which is wild to think about.
And I think some of the hires were made in response to Bruce, with like Alabama getting Nate Oates. They've made a point to care, much like they did with every other sport. It just took longer with basketball, and that was also like the emergence of the SEC network, and so that probably led to extra funding where it made more sense.
That money helped
to do it, and it really set them apart. And it's worked. It's absolutely worked, because it's not like the talent wasn't in the Southeast, right? They were just going to Duke and the ACC and the Big East at that time. And then, the folks in Texas may have been going to the Big 12, which the Big 12 has always been a solid basketball conference. But now it's the SEC, and it's not close. And I think it's awesome. I think it's great. So, how far does Auburn go?
I'm going to say at least the Elite Eight in both basketball and baseball.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Nice segue, right?
Yeah, I think Auburn makes the Final Four.
I think so. I can buy that. Yeah, I'm not worried about that. I can buy that. I know you're going to get our official predictions later this week for the show, but yeah, I could Final Four. That makes sense to me. I feel good about that. Yeah.
So you just teed it up. I mean, Auburn baseball was incredible this weekend against Vanderbilt, who's known for college baseball.
Mm-hmm.
We touch on that in just a second, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. It is the place to bet on all of the basketball that is happening in this particular month of the year. One of my lines that I love for Auburn is, you can bet just yes or no, Auburn to reach Elite Eight. The yes is -186. For folks who don't understand what those numbers are, that is FanDuel saying, yes, we think Auburn is going to the Elite Eight.
To win $100, you have to bet 186 to win $100.
Yeah, you don't bet on that line. No. You don't bet on that line unless you're betting against them.
Yeah.
And Vegas is saying, yeah, we'll take those odds. And then Auburn reached the Sweet 16, and this is what I point to. These people are not in the mood to lose money. And the line for them to reach the Sweet 16, which means they got to beat Louisville or Creighton, is -430 for them to make it, which once again means you have to bet $430 to win 100. And so they want you to bet against Auburn, which is +300. You bet $100, you win 300. They're begging you to do that. That should give you some excitement. That should give you some excitement as far as how the folks who make things happen feel about Auburn seeding in the NCAA tournament. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 in extra bucks to use on anything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories. Visit FanDuel.com to get in on the college hoops action all tournament long.
The NCAA Tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA Tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Just quick promo. I'm on the first one. Go check it out. Me and Brandon Olson, host of Locked On Gators, talks us back to each other. So very fun stuff. Very fun stuff. Auburn baseball takes 2 out of 3 in the opening weekend of SEC play. They host the Vanderbilt Commodores, a team that is known for elite college baseball. Auburn wins on Friday. Auburn finds a way in walk-off fashion, a little Cade Ballou action.
Not quite walk-off, but late.
Okay.
Yes. Home run in the 8th, take the lead. Yeah. Grand slam in the 8th.
I'm just trying to be more dramatic with it.
I know.
But you're right. But the extra drama was not technically correct. So thank you for changing that. But yeah, they win. They win in dramatic fashion on Sunday to take the series.
Here's the dominant stats that I can give from this series. You played 27 innings of baseball against Vanderbilt. They scored in 4 of them. I think it's 4, maybe 5. Either way, the point is not very many.
Wow.
That Friday game, I was talking to Brad Law. We both know Brad Law, your co-host on Village Vice, my co-host on the Barn Baseball Show. Talking to him on Saturday. Yes. Yes. That win they had on Friday, that team can beat any baseball team in the country. They used 2 pitchers. They had 11 strikeouts to 2 walks. They struck out only 3 times, not in any of the last couple innings. 6 runs on 8 hits. They held Vandy to 6 hits and 2 runs. Dominant. Saturday was frustrating, right? They could not get out of the 5th inning. They allowed 5 runs in that inning. That was the difference. They dropped the matchup 8-6. Last year, that's an 11-2 loss. This team is so much better than last year. And then Sunday, they're down like all game. They are down. They get down 2-0. They make it 2-1. They get down 6-1. They get a couple back, make it 6-3. And then 8th inning, Cade Blue, grand slam, shut down 9th inning, 7-6 victory. They win the series. This is a significantly improved baseball team. It is not perfect. Yeah. There are offensive issues that the freshmen are not the problem. I was complaining about the bottom of the order, though. Cade Blue came around with that home run. Eric Guevara in the 9th spot did really well. But like these freshmen are batting third, 4th, and 5th in your lineup. You've moved Chase Fralick, Bub Terrell, Chris Rembert up high in your lineup because they're doing so well. And your pitching staff, Sam Dutton was fantastic on Friday. He went.
His family has a ranch.
I've heard that there's a documentary about his family's ranch.
It's called Yellowstone. You should check it out.
I've heard good things. Listen, if he keeps doing this,
people keep trying to take it from him. It's crazy.
If he keeps doing 7 innings with 2 runs, 1 walk, and 6 strikeouts in SEC play, yeah, I'll watch every single episode of that documentary. That is fine. And then Carson Myers 2 scoreless to close it out. But are there things you can quibble about? Yes, obviously. When Vandy scored this weekend, it seemed to be in bunches. They had a 4-run 4th inning today. They had a 5-run 5th inning on Saturday, which I'm glad they didn't do any of this scoring in the 7th, the 8th, or the 9th, because it would have been, obviously 7 or 8 or 9 runs. They had 2 runs in the 2nd on Sunday. Like, this is a pattern. But Auburn found a way to win 2 out of 3 and game 1 in dominant fashion. So, and even game 2, they lost game 2. They had more hits. They had more strikeouts. They had they threw more strikeouts. They allowed less walks.
Yeah.
You play that game 50 times, it's probably 26-24.
Okay. Yeah, you take that. Against
it was
a team
a
like
very
Vanderbilt, you take it.
balanced game. It just didn't work out for Auburn's luck this time.
So Auburn now heads to Kentucky this upcoming weekend. Kentucky went 1-2 against Georgia, I believe. Georgia's very good. They're ranked 4th. What do we think about Kentucky? What's on the line? What's at stake if Auburn heads to Lexington? What are your expectations here?
So Kentucky was able to put up runs on Georgia. Anybody can score 6 runs on Georgia. Like, that's just, you got to know that. Like, Georgia's offense is good. Anybody can. You and I could score 6 runs on Georgia.
I promise that's not true.
Yeah, that's probably not actually true now. But the point is, they won 1 of those 3 games. And we're kind of at the point where this weekend, you have to expect 2 out of 3. Like, there's nothing really you can do but 2 out of 3 from Kentucky.
Yeah.
It's going to come down to, as it did this weekend, Saturday and Cade Fisher. And from talking to Butch Thompson after Saturday's game, I expect Auburn to probably have a different starter in there for Saturday. Andreas Alvarez went 4 innings on Sunday in relief. He's been a midweek guy. They held him to the weekend. I'm going to believe that was on purpose. I feel like he's going to be a starter on Saturday, and Cade Fisher's going to take that Carson Skipper role. It's going to be a 2-1 weekend, but we're going to talk all about it on the Barn Baseball Show this week. So check that out wherever you get your podcasts, the Barn YouTube channel, all that.
Yep, it's worth it. It's worth your time. No question about it. And that's how you find all of Lindsay Crosby stuff, thebarnauburn.com. I post there. He mentioned Brad Law, and I do Village Vice on the Barn Auburn YouTube channel. Be sure to talk about that as well. But hey, please like the video. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.